Hello, I'm Kenneth Kinney, and welcome to another episode of An Education That Works, where every week Victory University profiles leaders in our community who've gone on to achieve phenomenal success in their careers after earning a college degree. As the President, CEO, and Chairman of the Board of 3 different companies in 3 different industries, today's guest is Ken Edmundson, who now focuses on improving the performance of people as well as creating profitable and transferable growth. A noted author and a fantastic motivational speaker, he's well known for his ability to unlock the potential of people as well as help leaders achieve their goals. With him, I discuss how his own college degree began the process for what has since become an impressive career, and I discuss some of his own secrets and thoughts on both education, human potential, and how we can improve our community. So join me now for another episode of An Education That Works. All right, so welcome to another episode of An Education That Works. I'm here with Ken Edmundson. And so, Ken, tell me a little bit about your own background, your college degree, and where your story got you to here.
College degree, that goes back a ways.
Yeah.
1971 to 75, University of North Alabama, a small, really great school in the northwest corner of Alabama. It was known as Florence State University then. It's Division II school, great athletic program, great business school, great nursing school. Just a beautiful campus. It was an old Methodist teachers college for years and years. And so that's where I did what we call college. Today, gee whiz, the opportunities are they just weren't that many back then. You went on campus, and if you didn't live on campus, you drove to campus. Right. And I think about my siblings. One went to University of California, one went to the University of Colorado, one went to Georgia State, but I went to this little school in North Alabama, which is still very important to me. Very important to me.
Well, talk about a little bit about your career after you graduated and got to where you are today.
Well, we could take the rest of the interview talking about how that process has become so instrumental, as I talk about it in our work today and in our writing today. Unfortunately, in school, we take young men and women and we ask them at age 18 or 19, decide what you want to do for the rest of your life, or at least decide what course of study you think you would want to follow. Well, some people are qualified perhaps maybe to pick out something that would be meaningful. Unfortunately, the majority of us picked out what we thought we could get through.
Sure. What was your undergrad?
My undergraduate degree was in sociology and history.
Sure. With
a minor in biology. I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist, and then I found out they actually had to do chemistry.
Sure.
And, so what do you do with that? I thought I wanted to teach. That still was always in the back of my mind, and as I moved toward those later years of college, got married, and my wife and I said, maybe teaching, maybe business. Well, the first job offer you get, the first exit off the highway, you usually take, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever that is, generally starts to set a precedent. So
sure.
Here's my encouragement for any young people. And I do speak to a lot of graduates and postgraduates, and this is really probably the most. It's important, it's hard for us at 18, 19, 20 to do. If you want a career, if you want to use your education, and I'm not sure that everybody should do the formal education right out of high school, maybe military, maybe some public service or something, and then go into school, because we know from science that our brains don't fully mature until we're 25, and then it starts to deteriorate. So, we're really not a bad idea to delay making that choice if you can, when you can. Here's the criteria for picking. And if I'd have known this when I was younger, would I have done something different? Perhaps. Would I have taken it a different direction or more serious? Perhaps. The idea that we've been told for as long as the viewers probably have ever heard, and that goes back into the 70s, we've been told, follow your passion, do something you love to do or don't do it. We've not only heard it, books have been written about it. it's almost been a given. I don't even think most people remember when they didn't hear that. Well,
Sure.
it actually came out in the 70s when an Episcopal minister wrote a paper about following your passion. He was really writing it to other Episcopal ministers about them leaving the ministry if they did. Follow your passion, follow what you love to do. Great idea and concept. That paper eventually became a book called What Color's Your Parachute, and it became legendary. And since that time, we've always talked about follow your passion. Here's a different way to look at that. Only 1% of the population is born with a predisposition toward any passion for anything. Usually those are artists, musicians, and athletes. The rest of us, which includes 99% of us, we really have to find that passion. How do you find the passion? If you don't start with one, how do you find it? Well, it starts right here where you start your college education. Find something that you think you could be really, really good at. You don't have to love it. It's not a prerequisite to picking a career because you're not going to be passionate about it, regardless of what the late Steve Jobs, who is probably one of the 3 or 4 most iconic business guys in the last century, said to the Stanford graduates when he told them, if you don't love what you're doing, don't do it. And these kids just paid $400,000 to get an accounting degree.
Right.
They weren't going to be passionate about that. Find something you think you could love to do, and or like to do, or be good at doing. Sales, accounting, engineering, it doesn't. Whatever it is, even if it's doing something in the labor field, the trade field, brick masons, painting, all of those things. Find something you think you'd be good at. Now, here's the first step. It takes 10,000 hours for you to be good at something. I mean, really, really, really good at it. That's 15 years. If you get really good, and I don't mean, and to these guys that are listening to this and talk about a 4-year education thing, if I just get through this, you never stop learning. You never stop. You go back to school, get as much as you get as good as you can get. Become an expert at what you do. When you become an expert, the second thing you get is you get autonomy. You find the best people at doing something, they'll have the most autonomy. They get to do what they want to do. That's something every human being would like. When you get autonomy, you get to pick the people you do it with, which is the second or third thing people want. Get good at it, you get autonomy, you get to pick the people you do it with. Once you get to this point, you're going to be probably compensated equal to or better than what you feel. People know if they're being treated fairly. They know if they're being paid well, being paid fairly. It's not I'm getting rich or I'm making millions. Am I being paid? And most people just want to know they're being compensated at the best they can be. Guess what happens after about 25 years of that? You will be passionate about what you do. Passion is an outcome. Long answer to a short question, but I never let that question go by. When somebody says, how'd you pick what you did? By mistake, coincidence, took the first road off the exit ramp, which was selling. Good fortune, good mentors, a good solid education, all of those played into it. But at some point, it becomes your responsibility to become passionate about what you do. But it starts right in that college decision making. The most important decision in college is not what curriculum are you going to follow, what sorority fraternity are you going to join. It's, is this something I can really enjoy and get good at when I leave here? Makes a lot of sense if you think of it that way.
Being a professor, being an educator is like my dream. It's like I follow like our family tradition maybe. My mother is a professor. She's very, very good. She, from my childhood, I see how she influenced her students' life, impact their life in a very positive way. So I set my mind, I'm going to be a teacher. So that I can help some people to impact their life. Math is a perfect discipline to provide any opportunity for our students, no matter what they do, no matter what they're major in. So math is always very important. So we talk about the critical thinking skills. So that is mainly developed in learning mathematics.
So talk about your own passion. You're a well-known speaker. You give a lot of motivational speeches that I've had the pleasure of hearing. You've provided a lot of different types of training, especially at executive level. You're an author. You're renowned throughout the area for helping people. Talk about your own passion for helping people achieve that. I know for us, a lot of times it's education. Gets people started. It's that incubation period to help people get started, like you just said, about moving forward in their careers. But talk about the education, if you will, that you help provide, and that's given you such a passion in your life and in your company.
Well, the service we provide is an outgrowth of both experience and what is now a passion. If you arrive at a point, if you think about life being broken up into really three sections, it's oftentimes easy to look at the decades. For instance, the decades are, the 20s are the discovery years. You spend a lot of time trying things and discovering what you can and can't do. You usually get married, and maybe you start your family then if you're in the 20s. 30s become really I think those are the years where you really have your values discovered and checked, because those are the years where job offers are going to, there are decisions you make in those years that if your values aren't solid, you're going to make some decisions that'll affect you for the next 35 years. Mm-hmm. The 30s are difficult years. The 40s become what I call the pressure years. You're now at a point where you're at your highest income potential, your highest job responsibility, your families, if you've got a family, or your relationships are all matured. And those years can be pressure years. The 50s become, if you will, what I call the purpose years, where you start to think about what do I give back. The 60s become the wisdom years. I love those years now, because things I said when I was 35 that were stupid, now people say, well, that's very wise.
Sure, sure.
So 60s, 70s, become really the mentoring years, where you really mentor and give back. The 80s, if you ever get there, I think are the legacy years. Those are really broken down into three sections of your life. We call it the achievement phase. That can go on for 20, 30 years. It's where we, as human beings, we want to gather, we want to reap, we want to get as much as we can get sometimes. I don't mean to make that sound the wrong way, but it is the achievement years where we take care of our families, where we secure as much as we can. If we're fortunate living in this country, we've got every opportunity in the world to do that. However, there comes a point in your 40s or 50s, maybe for some people in the 60s, and for a few people maybe never, but for most of us there comes a point where you have to say, what's significant about what I'm doing? I've made these achievements. What's significant? That second phase, whether it begins in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, is significance. What's going to matter to somebody else? The human being is wired to work as a group, to work as teams. There's incumbent in every one of us a desire to help somebody else, to matter. If that's not there, that's a pretty big missing piece. So the achievement years can end. Maybe they end in your 40s, maybe. And this isn't about I'm rich enough to go do something. It's just part of being the human spirit. I'm going to give back. Some people start a lot earlier. Most of us start somewhere in late career, so in our 50s. And then there's that third phase, which is really after we're gone, the legacy years. Does anybody care we were here? Did it matter that we were here? Do we leave a fingerprint in somebody else's world? And if you look at your life in those three, that's how I actually discovered. I was very fortunate during my 30s and 40s to be a founding partner and a part of a wonderful company that we grew and developed, and it did very, very well. And I thought that was the reason that I would go right on into the sunset with that company. We ended up selling the company back in the late 90s, unbeknownst to me. The company was far more valuable than what I thought it was when people started approaching us. That put me into a season of life in my late 40s where the financial concerns may not have been as much anymore as they could have been. And I found that you start asking yourself, what's all this for? What are you going to do with it? And that's where I began to think about this idea. And I write a lot about it in our books, this idea about purpose. Purpose is your reason for being. It's everything that your life ultimately culminates in. What purpose is more than a goal? A goal is always about either ego or security. It's always about money or recognition. I want to be the richest, most famous person in the graveyard. And that's okay. That's all right. But every goal is fear-based, and it's always about money or recognition. It's always about me, or it's always about my security. Nothing wrong with that if you've got good values. But at some point, you got to have a greater reason, or life becomes very, very difficult, very, very challenging. Purpose is that reason for being. We talk about it in companies all the time. Companies have this purpose. Human beings have a purpose. What is my reason for being here? And that significance drives that. And I discovered that desire to be a teacher way back when I came out of a family of teachers. My daughter's, one of my daughters is a teacher. My grandparents were teachers. My aunts were teachers. I guess there was some sense of that in my DNA. I found that to be an interesting thing because I really did feel like, based on the company we built, the principles we built, that I knew something that I could help other young companies work with. So we began to build a consulting and training program around that. I thought, this is the way to give back. So we've developed my personal purpose and my business purpose to run in tandem with that. So when I'm talking to you as a businessman or a businesswoman or a company, typically our clients will be privately held. The CEO, the founder, she or he will still be in residence. It'll be typically less than 300 employees, typically less than $100 million in revenue. That's where we really feel our purpose is today best used. Purpose doesn't change. How you manifest that purpose does.
I'm going to college because it's important to have a degree if you want to get anywhere in life. I would like to become my own business partnership one day and be able to choose who I partner with, and I think a degree is going to go a long way in helping me get there. I really like the idea of marketing, and that's why I chose to do the business administration with the marketing side. They have really great small classes here, and that's why I chose Victory instead of other colleges. But in 2 years, I'll have my degree, and I'll be able to go out and get the job that I want.
Well, when we talk about an education that works, it's about helping students, really of any age, develop the kind of skills that help better prepare them for a career. And it's like the skills you've been talking about. What advice would you give to colleges and universities today to help them better prepare students so that they'll become better leaders and business people for tomorrow in any field?
My experience of being on campuses of universities and being privileged and being invited to come and speak to their students, I'm encouraged by the actual hands-on experience in watching professors work and seeing the care that many of them, if not most of them, have for their students. No tangent here about some of the liberalism that's on the campus, some of the teachers taking advantage. I think that's a minority, but I think they're there. The majority of experiences I've had on campus in my many years of going on campus, recruiting and speaking and working with professors has been very positive. What I would recommend we continue to spend more time on, I'd love to see universities do more assessment work on the front end with these students. Some of them don't know where they need to go, more counseling for them. I'd love to see students have to go through some type of program, either in the beginning or even before, where they have to get some life experience. Mm-hmm. It's just so difficult for a 20-year-old or 21-year-old to make the kind of choices that will carry them for the next 30, 40 years. And I sense that colleges could do more of that, and if we're guilty of anything, it might be just running them through a factory sometimes.
What advice do you give to young people today, now that you're in a giving back phase and you're helping mentor not only executives, but you must have a lot of people who are sons of those CEOs and daughters that come to you and say, what should I do as far as a degree choice goes, or college education? What kind of advice do you give them?
We do see a lot of those. In fact, we've had several high schools to approach us about doing some testing on their seniors, which is doable. It's very doable. What are the things you've, depending on where the person comes from, your comments earlier, I'd say in 20% of the executives I work with, somewhere along the way, someone in the group will talk to me about going back to school, what should I do, more education, and that varies in depending on the person. For young students or college-age students, I would encourage them, if they can, to find a place where they can go through the assessment work. Now, I want to give them solutions they can actually implement. It's not expensive. Finding a place where they can sit down either with somebody like us or a psychologist, somebody that says, here's how you're hardwired. And I really encourage the students to take control of what they want to do. Now, parents, sit tight here. If it takes me 6 years to get done what I need to get done, this is a critical time in my life. Get as much as you can get. Education never really stops. Be prepared to continue to get educated and learn. I love what the colleges and universities have done over the last 10 or 15 years, where they've really encouraged the adult learning. They've set their programs up to where the adults can come back and access education and training. I think that's very important. For young people, though, it's just a starting point. It's not an end point for them. 4 years is not the end point.
Well, you've been president, CEO, and chairman of the board for 3 different companies. You've mentored a lot of people. What is your, crowning achievement thus far in your own career, and what are you most proud of that you've achieved?
Well, thank you for the question. I've never answered that question very well because I don't know that I've done it yet. I'm obviously very proud of my family, and
Sure.
My wife Debbie and I met in high school. We were 42 years and 3 daughters, and very happy about their success in growing up. So that's obviously part of the most proud moments in my life. Business-wise, it's building. I don't know that there's a point where you say, wow, that's it. I think in writing my purpose statement back in '98, when I came to the realization I better have one, and began to build a business around that purpose, it was the idea that I would try to give as much as I could of what I'd experienced and been given to as many people as I could. So I think I'll have to answer that question at the end. It's building. It's like a sandcastle. You just keep building on it, and I don't think of it as one thing. It's just,
Sure.
I'm blessed. I'm very fortunate.
Well, my last question is, what advice do you give people? There's so many people that are out of work today. The economy's slowly getting better, but not quickly enough for a lot of people that have been out of work for some time. So many students go back and get a college degree to try to help better improve their own careers. But what advice do you give people, whether employed or not, to help them improve on their own career today? If I'm sitting here watching this show and I'm thinking, I got to get my life going better, what kind of those first steps do people need to take to help make their career choices improve and help them and their families and everyone else?
Well, there's 3 things that I would quickly encourage, and I'll use the hardest one last. I have a real passion for people who are out of work, who want to work. So if you, and most of them do, they will take a job, whatever they can do to get back into the workforce. It may not be what they want to do, what they're qualified to do, or what they can do the best, but just get somewhere. There's work out there. It's not always the work that you and I would want to do if we had to stop what we're doing today. But I've asked myself that question: what would I do if I had to go do that? What would I do if I was in that position? So don't look for the perfect or the, I hear this a lot, well, this has got to be my last job.
Sure.
Well, it may or may not be. Our college students coming out of school today are going to have 10 jobs and 7 companies, 3 industries before they're 40 years old. Just get a job, because it may not be. It could be a transition job. And there's a lot of them out there that work that way. So number 2, you have to ask yourself, am I really learning? Am I presenting myself in a way that is in the best light? Get someone to be a good mentor. We tell people who come to us and seek that advice, find you a group of folks who love you, care about you, will give you honest advice, whether it's 1 or 50, and you put them together in a community. By that I mean, if you do email them, you write them, you go see them, you call them. Number 1, you need every week to update them on what you're doing. That holds you accountable. Here's what I did this week. Here's who I talked to. Networking's still the best way to get a job. Make sure your group knows what you're doing. And you never know. If I hadn't heard from you in 2 weeks, and all of a sudden I get an email saying, here's who I'm talking to, here's what I'm hoping to do, I may be talking to somebody that day and your name comes to my mind. So keep your group updated on what you're doing. It also holds you accountable. Tell them about interviews you're doing. Tell them about people you want to meet. Tell them about companies you'd like to get into. So build your network group. And the third piece is that hard piece. It's difficult in down times not to become a blamer, a victim thinker, or a procrastinator. And you got to remove that as much as possible. Eliminate blame, victim thinking, procrastination. It's a difficult time. And I think all of us can very easily think of ourselves being in that situation.
Sure.
So 50% of the people out there want to help you. You just find the ones that want to help you. Just keep doing. No blame, no victim thinking, no procrastination. I don't want to fuss at them because they got enough going on. But sometimes I find that we become our own worst enemy with that.
Sure. Well, I very much appreciate you giving your time and helping show a lot of our own viewers about helping improve their own performance. So thank you again for being
You're
on
welcome.
Education That
Thank
Works.
you. Thank you.
So if you or anyone else you know was motivated or inspired by today's story, or if you simply want to earn a college degree and help change our world, then I urge you today to go to aneducationthatworks.com. On behalf of Victory University, thank you for an education that works.